If you're not honest with yourself about the condition of the comic books you're buying, you're putting your collection at risk. Hey there, today I have an unboxing video, and in this video I'm going to open up auction winnings from the comic book auction platform HipComic from the seller Infinity Comics. Now the first thing I will say is I won these books about 6 months ago. It's been a while, and it's taken me this long to get around to opening up this shipment of comic books that I won at auction. And what I realized as I was preparing for the unboxing is that not only have the prices, the values, the fair market values of comics changed even in 6 months, but I would say even the strategy of buying raws versus slabs, raw value conditions, catching up to slabs, just some, you could say, awkwardness in the market. Some might say craziness or insanity in the market. Corrections, you can use any term that you want, but there's a real thing happening with raw books. And honestly, that was one reason that drew me to Infinity Comics, was because they had so many raws for sale, and they were interesting raw books. Keys, typically they even include a grail or two within their auction session, and there are scans of each item when you're placing a bid. Now, the thing with an auction is that a lot of times you get emotionally invested. You tell yourself, I'm going to stay within a particular bid range, but then you feel like, I just want the book. What's another dollar? What's another 5, 10, 50, $100 sometimes? It's very difficult to keep those emotions in check and really stay true to your methodologies and your budget. But I think that there's one other aspect to this that gets lost on me from time to time that I want to talk about, and that is condition. There are times where I will look at a book, I'll review the scan, and I'll look at the listing and what the seller is saying the condition of the book is, and then I will start to build my bid range around either the stated condition or maybe my predicted condition. And it's difficult. A lot of times when you're dealing with mid-grade, 4.5 to 7.5, somewhere in that range for silver and bronze age books, unless you're dealing with a super high-res photo, a lot of times a little spine tick here and there that could push a book up or down the grading scale. It makes a difference, but it's also hard to see in a scan. And so that's why I kind of build a range. So if I see a book listed in fine condition, then what I try and do is say, okay, well, what do I want to bid in maybe the 5.5 to 6.5 range? And I take some averages and so forth. But the emotional part that I deal with sometimes, but I think these comic books that I won at auction that I'm about to unbox, it's a good example of trying to be realistic about comic book condition. What ends up happening with me sometimes when I'm looking at raw book auctions is I start to kind of speculate on what could happen to the book in terms of condition. Like if it's a 5.0, but it looks better in the scan, and then what if I also got it pressed? Or can I maybe move this book from a 5 to a 7.5? So I'm going to bid on it as if it's a 7.5. Or maybe then I start to play this other sick and twisted game where I look at the 7.5 value and then I try and maybe win the book just under 7.5, so I feel better. I feel like I'm getting a deal. And I'm ignoring the fact that not only is it listed as a 5, I don't really see the scan clearly enough. So what I'm also not considering is, what if it's a 4? I'm always thinking about what's the potential of the book, or what are we looking at in terms of a ceiling? What's the max grade we could get? But also, what happens if it goes in the other direction? So I want to get to the unboxing. I want to show you the really cool comic books that I picked up, but also kind of walk you through the various ways that I try to look at condition in terms of scans, listings, values. And then finally, the most important thing is the comic books physically themselves being in my possession. So I might take a couple of books out and grade them here and we'll see how it turns out. But before we can look at the comic book condition, I need to unbox this shipment from Infinity Comics, so let's get to it. Okay, here is the shipment that I received from Infinity Comics on the platform HipComic. And you can see here, they put this nice big sticker, fragile, handle with care, post office, don't care. And here it is all smashed up. Now, typically the books inside are wrapped correctly and appropriately. I haven't really had a shipping issue with Infinity, so I'm not too nervous about this, but the whole like fragile sticker, pretty pointless and useless there. It looks like the whole package was just dropped on the corner or just smashed, Hulk smash, I don't know. But let's go ahead and open this up and see how the books turned out. All right, got through that epic unpacking of the auction items that I won from Infinity Comics. Very well packed order, lots of bubble wrap, so no concerns as far as the books being damaged in transit. I know that the outer box was completely smashed on one corner, but all of the bags and boards look to be in great shape, so that's awesome. So thank you, Infinity Comics, for packing the order very well. All right, let's look at the books. The first book is The Spectre, number 8. This is from 1969 with cover art by Nick Cardy. And a lot of the artists at this time would kind of jump back and forth between some of the other DC horror titles, House of Mystery, House of Secrets, also Batman. Probably the most famous is Neil Adams. But I just love this cover by Cardy with the Spectre reaching out with kind of a psychedelic feel here. A great 12-cent Silver Age cover here. And what I liked about this book, structurally, I think it looks really great. There's no drastic miswrap or anything, really strong colors, really not bad for a book that is almost 55 years old. Next up is Strange Tales, number 173 from Marvel Comics. This was published back in 1974. I love those 20-cent cover price books. This is Strange Tales featuring Brother Voodoo, and this will be Brother Voodoo's last appearance in Strange Tales. And this story features the Black Talon. This is the Black Talon's first appearance. And I think this is a good example of me wondering if the scan is better than the listed condition. So this book was listed as a fine plus, so a 6.5. And when I was reviewing the scans and just looking at the spine, this looked to me to be way better than a 6.5. You're not gonna. This is not gonna be a perfect book. Looks like there's a tiny bite taken out of that corner, but also just looking at sort of the darker colors up here in this framed cover design, I didn't see too many problems with it. Like if I'm looking at a 5 to a 6, I'm usually expecting to see a lot of color breaks and other issues in the top of the book. I do see a little bit of a finger bend right, get the light on it, right in there. You can see a little bit of a finger bend, but for the most part, it really doesn't look too bad. So what ends up happening is emotions get the best of me. I think that I know better than the seller, and I end up bidding on the book as if it's not a 6 or a 6.5. I start to think, ooh, this one could be a 7.5 or an 8.0, and I start looking at those values. And then I start adjusting just how I approach the auction. When we start to take a look at the numbers, we'll just see, first of all, is that a good idea? Which, no, it's not. But also, what happens if it does get a grade bump? What did those values look like? Was it really worth it spending extra money beyond what the listed condition is? Because even if it did get a grade bump, it still may not be worth it. I think the numbers will be interesting when we take a look at it. Next up is Star Wars, number 39 from 1980. And this is around the time of, obviously, Empire Strikes Back. And we have the adaptation of it right here within the main Star Wars title. This includes a partial reprint of Marvel Super Special Magazine, number 16. There's some controversy kind of with magazines and comics, and first appearance of Boba Fett, first appearance of some of the other Empire Strikes Back characters. This issue features the the first mention of Rogue, or how it relates to the Rogue Squadron, where there's a pilot in the issue that refers to himself as Rogue 2. Again, we're kind of getting into the weeds here about like first appearances, first references, first names, first callouts of the Rogue call sign and so forth. But what I love, great Darth Vader cover, and really felt like the condition, again, in the scan, was above what was listed. Now, instead of showing you through the bag and board, which I know is annoying, let's look at the actual comic itself. Now, this was listed as a VF minus, so a 7.5 on the auction site. And let's look at it a little bit up close. One thing I noticed through the bag and board was this dent right in here. Bam. Like, so that's a pretty significant, you can almost, this takes me back to comic books on the spinner rack. You can almost feel like the book was like being folded forward or someone was pulling on it and it just bent the book right in half. Now, the good news is most of that can be pressed out. The unfortunate part is there is a little bit of a color break that happened because of it right there. It's not bad. Really, really dark, deep colors here, blacks, purples. So again, a tough book to maintain all of that clarity without breaking a lot of color. But structurally, the book looks great. Love the corners. A little bit of an overlap there. Again, a press would help that. So the book definitely needs to be pressed, but and sharp edges. And the corner is soft, but it's not bad. I mean, I would look at that and say that that's a 9.6 type of corner, but spine looks great. I don't really see too many issues. A sharp corner at the bottom. Let's look at the back. So far, so good. I don't see any tearing. I mean, I don't even know if the book really needs to be cleaned. It looks really nice. So in this case, it was worth it, I think, for me to go through. Yeah, it's slightly dirty there. Maybe some light dry cleaning would help it out. I mean, so what do you think? What grade should this book be? I feel like even with the dent, I was going to say 9.0, but then if I just want to say, you know what, let's take into account some other, like maybe slight dings, like right in there, Vader's cape, just a little bit of a, like a fingernail type indent. So if we just want to be conservative with grading, which I would always recommend, 8.5. I have, again, this 9.0 that's like my single point of reference. It has more defects that I would say affects the eye appeal, like color breaks, corner splitting, corner softening, things like that. This book looks a lot better than that, but I still feel like there's other hidden issues here, just kind of going back and forth right here along this side, that would, you make the argument that we could move this into 8.5 territory. On the back, if you take a little bit of a closer look on the spine as well, there are some just there's no color back here, but there's just some general spine tick type of defects, just light ticks here and there, and a little bit of, some sort of discoloring there as well. So just some light dry cleaning, but I think an 8.5 on this is completely fair. So to say that I picked it up at the purchase price condition of 7.5, or what was listed as a 7.5, and to actually get it and have me screen it as an 8.5. So it's kind of what I was thinking when I was bidding on these books. Is I was looking at bid ranges, I was looking at fair market values within the range, and then I would also extend the range out and say, what if it was actually a grade bump or two higher, then what does the bid range look like after that? And then I would actually go through every scan of the books that I was interested in, zoom in and just grade the book through the scan as best I could. And then I would kind of keep a list of which books I thought were better, or in better shape than the scan. A lot of work, a lot of effort, but sometimes it can pay off and sometimes not, depending on the condition. Like the Spectre book, I feel like even looking at it through the bag and board is probably realistic. Maybe the Strange Tales will end up like the Star Wars book in being a little bit in better shape than the listed condition. Let's keep going and look at some more examples. And I think before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and put Star Wars 39 in a proper fullback and bag before I mess it up. All right, so there it is. A little tough to see. These fullbacks have the darker backing board, but I put 8.5, could benefit from a clean and press, so I mark it as a CP. And I like to do that as I'm looking through and fingering my bins. I want to make sure that I understand what condition I think the book is currently in, and then if there's the potential to improve it. So there it is in its own proper, now full bag and board. Always looks better when you rebag and board your own comics. Really cool. So 8.5 as is, where I think it could be even more improved, probably even up to a 9 if given the proper attention. So really happy with that pickup. Next book we have is Master of Kung Fu number 17, another 20-cent cover. Love it. And in this issue, if you're collecting third appearances of characters, then this is the book for you, because this is Shang-Chi's third appearance. And this is actually the first issue where Marvel Special Edition was renamed Master of Kung Fu. Shang-Chi made his first appearance when the title was Marvel Special Edition. I think people referred to it as Master of Kung Fu just because Shang-Chi is a popular character. But really cool book from 1974. And this, I can tell right through the bag and board. It has some color-breaking spine ticks, has some general discoloration, corner wear, so probably more true to the grade. But what I loved when I saw the scan, just fantastic dynamic cover, great colors, great artwork. Just a really, really great Ernie Chan cover here on Master of Kung Fu 17. Next is a Silver Age book, Justice League of America, number 16. Not a key or anything, but just a really classic Silver Age DC cover with the Justice League here, caught in a cavern of deadly spheres. And this book was listed really mid-grade in kind of the 5.0, 6.0, and as I was saying before, when I'm looking at like a 5.0, 5.5, I start to see just typical defects. The spine wear is pretty significant up and down here. Lots of wear around the staples and so forth. Corner wear, and then color breaks on the bottom and top cover is usually where I start to draw the line. It's just very typical of this age. Now the top edge of the front cover looks super sharp, which is nice. So maybe this ends up being a 6.0. But probably just eyeballing it, general first take is probably in that kind of 5.5 range. And the next book also kind of going hand in hand, Justice League of America number 15. Now these two books are from 1962, so over 60 years old, and you can definitely see the age and the wear and tear, some discoloration, lots of spine ticks. Again, definitely makes sense in that 5 to 6.0 type of range. And those were the conditions that these books were listed in. So don't feel like I really got any benefit beyond the scan. It looks like the condition that the books were advertised as in the listing matches up the actual physical condition here. But I still felt like even the raw fair market value of these books, I thought that I was getting a good deal at the time. We will check the data and see if that's true. But pretty awesome to have a couple of DC Silver Age books. All right, next up is Fantastic Four, number 115. Awesome cover art here by John Buscema, where we have Mr. Fantastic wrapping up the Thing. Cool 15-cent cover on this one, released in 1971. Looks to have maybe some dirt, could maybe benefit from a quick cleanup, some color rubbing in here, so definitely showing its age a bit, but really not too bad. I want to say maybe half a dozen color breaking ticks. Minor here. Corner looks to be really nice and sharp, just minor blunting. This one's not too bad as well. So, just eyeballing it, quick assessment, maybe around a 7.0 for that one, 6.5, something like that. Next is Detective Comics number 431, and this is from 1973. And this one looks to have like a subscription fold right down the center. Let's see if I can show you. Yeah, you can see it going up the book completely. So would benefit from a press. I don't know if I think it could be pressed and probably would not show any color breaks, but unfortunately the spine is in really rough shape. Now I was just drawn to the book. Again, primary colors, Mike Kaluta on cover art, but had to really pay attention to my bids, because this is definitely a mid-grade copy of Detective Comics number 431. All right, the next book, and looks like things are here in alphabetical order, so I'll just show these two together. This is Daredevil 115 from 2009, and this is Daredevil 113. Great covers by Marko Djurjevic, And this is the Lady Bullseye storyline. And just wanted to pick it up in case Lady Bullseye becomes a thing. Great story by Ed Brubaker. And these books were listed in like very good condition. I mean, there's definitely some damage. These are not near mint copies, but these were cheap. Just wanted to add them to my collection. They were just $1 or $2. All right, a few more books to go. Next is Captain America, number 131. This is from 1970. Cover art by Maurice Severin. Interior pencils by Gene Colan, written by Stan Lee. Colors on this one looks a little faded. Could have some ink stains, color rubbing here on the inside, just underneath the trade. Structurally looks pretty good. Definitely some corner wear. It just is kind of screaming 6.0, 5.5. But wanted to take a chance on this one. Nice Silver Age copy of Captain America. Next up is Alpha Flight 33. I love this book as this is the first appearance of Lady Deathstrike in costume. Really cool cover by Mike Mignola featuring the X-Men and Magneto with his giant M on the chest cover. It's also a newsstand copy, clearly because of the barcode. And I see one color break and dent right in here that would have to be dealt with, but other than that, looks to be pretty good. Definitely kind of in, I would say, just a general kind of a 9.0 type of range. Could benefit from a press, obviously, to get that dent out. So could maybe max out at a 9.2. And the last book is Adventure into Fear, number 29, or just Fear 29, featuring Morbius on the cover. And another kind of mid-grade copy, I would say 6.5 type. Nothing to get too excited about. This one is not a key or anything. Corner looks okay. Spine has kind of what you'd expect for this to be in kind of a mid-grade. So a little bit of a bummer there. So there you go. So a really cool, I think, collection of books. I'm definitely anxious to grade all of these myself. I really feel like maybe the one that I ended up grading, sort of just as an example, Star Wars, is probably the one that was, in fact, in better condition than the listing. But let's look at the numbers and kind of dig in as far as what would happen if these books did get a grade bump, because the question that I have is, does it even matter? All right, here we are. Here is the order that I placed with Infinity Comics, this order of auctions that I won, and I was invoiced $271.36 for these books. I paid $13.99 in shipping, and then what I do over here in column Z for the total cost is I distribute the shipping across all of the books. I also am charged tax on these, 9.5% here in California, and so that also adds to the total cost. So I want to make sure that, like, door to door, end to end, I really want to understand what I spent on the book. So for example, Fear 95, I ended up winning with a $7.95 bid, and my total cost to acquire the book was $9.03. Now, don't be distracted here in column AA, the raw value, because what that is doing is that is looking at the cover price fair market value of the comic book and then taking out my total cost and looking at a potential value add into my collection. Now, what this cover price fair market value is this is the value of the book in near mint condition or the highest value across any grade. I take the higher of the two, and that becomes the fair market value. However, I set this up by default to look at near mint, which none of these books I don't think are near mint. Maybe that Alpha Flight. I can hope that Star Wars 39 is 9.4, but I don't think any of these are near mint. So this is a little misleading right now. However, it is kind of fun if they were all near mint. What a deal. But we have to stick to condition. That was kind of the point during my introduction to this video, is around being realistic with the condition of the books and not trying to will the book into a better condition or maybe close one eye when you're looking at a scan. This is your money. These are books that you're trying to acquire. It's just difficult when you see great comics that you're interested in. You have to stop yourself and not bid on the book if it's not also in the condition that you're looking for. And I think that this is a good example of me ignoring the more logical approach and looking at books and being in the mood to buy and maybe bidding on these and thinking or wishing or hoping that they were in better shape than they were. Again, I think Star Wars 39, based on these books, probably the outlier. I think that is a book that is better than the advertised in the listing VF minus. But let's see here. The first thing I want to do is bring in the actual grades so that we can see what the actual cover price fair market value is. So what ends up happening is as I bring in these grades, the cover price fair market value adjusts and we see the CGC values come in as well. So this went from a over $600 value add from a raw book perspective to $23.64. I don't think that's too terrible. I think that that's fine. Even after 6 months and a lot of these books dropping in value, as most comics have over the last 6 months, I think to generally have a break even or a plus 23 raw value add, not bad. I'm not really going to complain about that too much. And again, I'm just looking at the grades where Spectre 8 was listed as a fine plus, and I gave it exactly a fine plus. It has a $21 fair market value raw, and I spent pretty much that. And even in a CGC 6.5, it's valued at $87. So this is where I thought, okay, this would be a pretty good pickup. It's a break-even fair market value. It has the potential for maybe a grade bump if pressed and clean, maybe. If not, a $34 CGC fair market value add here if you look at column AB. The total, if I were to blindly send all of these books off to CGC as is, has a potential value add of $64. Now, to be realistic, this is driven off of Justice League 15. In a 5.5, currently a CGC fair market value of $169 for a $95 value add. Now, the other trouble with some of these non-key mid-grades is that based on the fair market value, recent sales, and other things, you may see data from some of these sources move around, not be accurate, let's say from maybe 2015 to 2023, where you could have a 5.5 with a sold value 3 years ago of 169, and then a recent sale of a 6.0 be like $85. And so that's where these numbers too, I wish the online price guides were able to deal with more trend analysis and projections. I do this in my own evaluation when I'm trying to predict what maybe a 9.4 or 9.6 should be based on 9.8 and just what those scales, the values of the scales when you're maybe looking at 50,000 comic book values. If they all have 9.4, 9.6, 9.8 values, you can really kind of understand kind of the scale and see, what a true 9.4, 9.6 value should be if there's a 9.8, etc. I wish there was some more predictive and maybe with AI or some other technologies, the sources will get better at this. But I'm just saying to myself and to you, don't get too excited by that 169 value in a 5.5 because it may not be entirely accurate. Again, just a ballpark estimate. And that's what's kind of driving this one. Most of these books are negative. Spectre, positive 34, Adventure into Fear, 29, $18 of value added in a CGC 7.5 there. Star Wars 39 at a 7.5, $35 in a CGC 7.5 for a loss of $16, a loss of $40 on Strange Tales 173 and so forth. So that's kind of what you're kind of looking at. But again, this allowed me to bid on these books in total because just using the values for what they are, a positive raw value add and a positive graded value add. But now what I want to do is kind of show you what would happen if all of these books got a grade bump. You would think that this would be a good thing. You would think that, hey, higher grade, higher value, right? Well, let's see. So I moved all of these up 0.5, plugged in their new grades, and I lost money. Why? Because of what I said. Justice League 15 and a 6.0 moved to $70. Now, some of them did go up. Spectre number 8 jumped to 110, so that's good. But that one book that was really carrying this order fell off, and you can see now we're in a negative $45 territory. Even the cover price fair market value, which again, it's tough when I don't want to criticize the sources too much. It's really tough when you're talking about mid-grade, non-keys, not a lot of sales. The price really fluctuates. Almost like you need a range to say 4.5 to 7.5, almost like if there are no recent sales in the last 6 months, then just take the average across those or find the top 6 most recent sales within the range and average that. I think they can do a better job representing true predictive fair market value instead of relying so much on the actual sale itself, because it's difficult for me as a collector to really assess and figure out what is my collection worth when they do this. Let's do one more just for fun and say they got 2 grade bumps. So now I've moved the original grade up 1.0. And does this matter? Well, at least CGC is back positive at $30. The Spectre book went down to 77, so it's kind of all over the place. Justice League 16 jumped all the way up to 151, if you believe that. So these numbers are all over the place. And the reason I'm showing you this is also because unless you're going to bid on a Mega Key or Grail, it may not really matter in terms of, am I going to bid on this 5.5 and I look at the scan and I think, oh boy, I think it's a 7.0. Does it really matter? And I think when you're looking at certain kind of books, the answer is no, it does not matter. It's almost like you could just put it in a low, mid, high grade bucket. And maybe that's how you start looking at certain books. The trend in the market, you could argue, again, that the monetary value of comic books is slipping. But I think what I have seen is the desire for certain books has slipped. Now, you could say supply and demand then, right? As the demand drops, then the supply goes up, price value drops, basic economics, yes, but there's still demand for comic books as a collectible. I'm still looking for big keys. I'm still looking for deals. Like, the demand is out there for those books. The demand for some of these other books, maybe take this Captain America, for example. Is there real demand for this? It's not a key. It's an older book. It's mid-grade, 4.5, 6.5. Is there real demand for a mid-grade raw Captain America? Sure, there's some. But because the demand is so low, the nuances between a 4.5, a 5, and a 5.5, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter as much as it used to. And so this is where, when I was looking at bidding on Infinity Comics regularly, I used to do all of these projections around kind of what if scenarios. So what if this 4.5 magically became a 7? Oh man, well then you can bid over the fair market value of a 4.5 if you feel strongly that this can be improved. And I think that while that logic should still exist somewhere, I don't think it's as important. I think that you could almost argue that we should maybe go back to wider ranges of grades. I think we're so fixated on the grading companies and their grade points and trying to scrutinize between a 9.2 and a 9.4 or a 6.5 and a 6 and spending so much time trying to figure out what is this precise grade when you're kind of just wasting time. You're wasting your own money by trying to figure out what all of these books are in terms of a grade. Now, I enjoy assigning a grade point to each book. I'm going to continue to do that. But I think that that's some food for thought, is to look at a book and just say, if I see a VF minus, does it really matter? Could I just kind of look at my low, mid, and high grade values and maybe decide whether I would bid on a book based on those wider ranges at this point than being so specific or particular around the grade points? What do you think about maybe shifting how you look at conditions and values to these wider ranges, or do you think it's important to stay very, very specific, especially with what I talked about when the price guides and the online sources are not entirely accurate in those ranges either? Feel free to leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.